Hi there, my name is Darren, and growing up I struggled to get my parents to ever notice me. They were always way more focused on giving my older brother Brandon attention and praise. It was absolutely infuriating. I would study extremely hard and do my absolute best and get perfect grades, but they would instead fawn over Brandon and how well of an athlete that he was. I think that they were hoping that he would make it to the big time and become a professional athlete, and that he would share his wealth with them once he did.
Oh, Brandon, you were amazing in last night's game. Without you, your team would have lost for sure, but you managed to get them the win.
Your mom is right. You carried your team the entire game. We're very proud of you. Thanks, guys, but I had no doubt that I would do well. That other team was weaker than Darren. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Oh, be quiet, Darren. Let your brother enjoy his win. No matter what happened, they were always doing and saying things like that. Like when our report cards were sent out, they would praise Brandon and put me down. Good job, Brandon. You managed to improve your average. You only got 1 D on this report card. Yeah, I really struggled to do better than last time, and it shows. But you got mostly C's. What about my report card? I managed to get the highest marks in the entire class.
No one likes someone that brags all the time, Darren. Maybe if you would go to the gym from time to time and make a sports team like your brother, we would actually care a bit more.
Mom's right. You can get all the good grades you want, but you're still fat and ugly, Darren, and that's the only thing that actually matters. It hurt for them to say such things, especially since I knew that some of it was true. I was quite a bit overweight, and I had never been very lucky with women, so I had always assumed that I was ugly. It really hurt my self-esteem, and I didn't see any way of making things better. So instead, I just focused on what I was good at, and that was studying really hard. I knew that no matter what I did, that it would never matter to my parents or Brandon, and so I just ignored them. Later, when it was time for Brandon and I to go off to college, we both managed to get scholarships. He got a football scholarship while I got an academic one. And of course, our parents only praised him for his while they basically ignored me. Once the two of us went off to school, I focused on getting my degree in computer science while Brandon just partied and played football. My parents raved about the games that Brandon's team won and ignored the fact that he was beginning to party more and more. To me, it looked like he was drinking a bit too much, but they didn't see it and just kept praising him. During his senior year, there were several scouts for major teams that were watching him play, and unfortunately tragedy struck during one game where he was tackled and became injured. It was so bad that he was forced to sit out for the rest of the season and was unable to play any games, which made all the scouts lose interest in him. As a result, he became depressed and began drinking even more and was only rarely ever sober. Mom and Dad, I'm a bit worried about Brandon. He might be an alcoholic and might need serious help.
Oh, just stop it. You're just jealous of your older brother. You just watch. Once he heals, he'll be back playing, and then he'll get scouted and play for a professional team. Then you'll eat your words.
There was no convincing them, and so I just focused on graduating, and once I did, on getting a full-time job so that I could move out. Once I was out on my own, things started to get better for me. My new work colleagues were such a good influence on me, and I started hanging out with them, and even going to the gym with them as well. Before long, I started to lose weight and gain confidence, and I even started dating. Back in high school, I found that the girls back then were only ever interested in the guys who played sports, but the women that I was meeting were much more mature, and were more interested in people that were nice and fun to be around. Before long, I had a girlfriend, and was actually very happy and feeling really good about myself. That is, until my parents called and reminded me about why I hadn't spoken to them in a long time. Darren, we need you to come home immediately. Hey guys, I can, but what's wrong? Why the urgency?
It's your brother. His liver is failing, and we need you to donate a large portion of your liver to him.
Wait a minute. What happened? Is it because of his drinking problem? It doesn't matter what caused it. He needs a portion of your liver, and his life is far more important than yours. Just get to the hospital and make preparations in case things don't work out. What do you mean by that? Is there a lot of risk for him?
Yes. If he doesn't get this transplant, then he'll die. And there is a chance that taking a portion of your liver might end up killing you, but that's a risk that needs to be taken. If he doesn't get this transplant, then there is no way that he'll make to the professionals.
Hold on, I'm not giving up my life just to give him a new liver that he will ruin with his addiction. If you two had listened to me and gotten him help, then this wouldn't even be an issue. The answer is no.
How could you be so incredibly selfish? Your brother is in need and you're refusing to help him? Your life is pathetic. All you do is play on a computer all the time while your brother has a chance to make something of himself and actually have a future. Unlike you, who won't amount to anything except maybe becoming the world's fattest man.
I had enough of their abuse, and so I lashed out at them. Not that it matters, but I'll have you know that I lost most of my weight and I'm in the best shape of my life. Not only that, but I have a girlfriend that is pretty enough to be a supermodel and smart enough to win the Nobel Prize. And maybe I don't make as much money as a professional athlete, but I do make over $150,000 a year. And the house that I bought for myself is huge. You always put me down growing up, and I never had the courage to stand up to you. Well, that ends today. Don't ever call me again. And just like that, I hung up on them. I did feel guilty for not helping my brother, but he had no one to blame for his current situation other than himself. And the fact that my parents wanted to use me to bail him out was inexcusable. I did look up the procedure that they had wanted me to take part in, and the success rate for the person that received the transplant was very low, and the risk for the person that was donating the organ was incredibly high. My parents fully expected me to gamble with my life on the slim chance that it would benefit Brandon, and I wasn't willing to take that risk. Over the next few weeks, though, my parents kept calling me back and begged me to change my mind, and I eventually had to block their numbers so they couldn't harass me anymore. I even had to go so far as place a restraining order against them, as they began to come to my house and beg me when they couldn't reach me by phone. However, they eventually stopped trying to bother me, and I assumed that something had happened. Later, I found out that my father reluctantly had donated a portion of his liver, and that he nearly died on the operating table. But thankfully, the surgery was a success, and that both he and Brandon would recover. The only problem was that my parents still refused to acknowledge that Brandon needed help, and once he was well enough to do so, he went back to his old habits and started drinking heavily again. Because of his drinking problem, he was kicked out of college, and he lost his scholarship, and along with it, all of his hopes of ever playing professional sports. My parents were devastated and became absolutely miserable, as they had placed all their hopes and dreams on Brandon's success. So much so that they hadn't saved a penny for their retirement and are forced to keep working well past the age where they should have retired. My father has even picked up a second job as a janitor to make ends meet, since they lavish Brandon with their savings. As for Brandon, he isn't very well, and he leeches off of our parents. Being a college dropout, he wasn't able to get a job that paid well. He cleans people's houses, but he still spends most of his paycheck on alcohol, and every time I see him, he looks worse and worse. I'm doing great, however. My girlfriend has since become my wife, and we are expecting twins in a couple of months. Although we've both decided that we are going full no contact with my family, and that although it will be hard on them, my children will never know their grandparents, but that's really for the best. I learned that family is very important, but that the family I was born into was incredibly toxic compared to the one that I made with my lovely wife. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.